In the apartment across the hall, I first noticed the ring-shaped dent on my neighbor's nightstand the same week I started sleeping with my fiancée's best friend. It was one of those details you only catch when you've been invited into someone's private orbit and don't yet know the choreography, where the toothbrushes live, how the lamp tilts. The indent was pale against the wood, a moon without its moonlight. She told me it was where her ex kept his wedding band to let it breathe. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. Her name is Myra. She moved into 4C in April, 2 doors down from the apartment I share with Elise. She has a way of standing that looks like she's bracing for impact. One knee turned, shoulders slightly forward, eyes soft like she's already forgiven you for something you're about to do. The first time I saw her, I was carrying groceries and she was holding the door with her hip, a phone between her cheek and shoulder, keys clanging from her finger. She mouthed hi and I mouthed hey, and it was nothing, a hallway sound. A week later, she and Elise were laughing on our couch like they'd been friends since high school. I learned they'd met in a yoga class, that Myra used to work in political comms, that she liked red wine she couldn't afford and sometimes colored the scuffs on her boots with black Sharpie. This is not the story I planned to live. I had a ring in a drawer. I had a wedding Pinterest board Elise never knew I'd seen. I had a life sketched in pencil, a spring ceremony, a dog that chewed our shoes but not each other's patience. We were good at gentle distances, her work, my work, Sunday coffee we never missed. I told myself that was maturity. I told myself the quiet meant safety, the kind that lasts. It started on a Thursday after a storm. The building's electricity flickered and the elevator did its stubborn shrug. Elise texted she'd be late. A donor dinner had spilled into karaoke, and she was trapped in a corner with the CEO who sang like a man trying to lift something heavy with his voice. I was halfway through reheating pasta when there was a knock. Myra stood there in a sweater the color of forest at night, sleeves shoved to her elbows, asking if I had a lighter. She had a candle, she said. The blackout made her feel small. I don't smoke, but there's a drawer in our kitchen with the flotsam of other versions of us, spare keys, foreign coins, a bent safety pin, a lighter from a bar neither of us remembered. I brought it over, and she invited me in, and the apartment smelled like pine cleaner and the sweet, faint trace of her shampoo. The candle threw a theatrical light over everything. Shadows leaned in to watch. "It's too quiet," she said. "I keep thinking I'll hear the city breathing, but it's just me." "Sometimes I play rain sounds when it's already raining," I said, then wished for better words. "Backup rain," she smiled. "I could use a backup life." We sat on the floor with wine in mismatched mugs because she couldn't find her corkscrew and had opened the bottle with a screw and pliers, which looked like a crime scene but worked. We didn't talk about Elise because saying her name felt like taking a match to dry grass. We talked about strangers whose windows we could see from hers, about the woman who dances alone at midnight, the couple who eats dinner in silence and nods together at the end like that was the point. The candle burned a crater. Her face flickered between ghost and portrait. When the lights came back, we didn't move. The sudden outline of regular life was startling. She took the lighter and set it on the nightstand, perfectly inside the dent where the ring used to live. "You should take that back," she said. "You'll need it." "For what?" I asked, though I knew. "For the next time the dark shows up." She walked me to the door and thanked me for the rain. I went home and lay in bed beside a text from Elise that said, "Save me a slice of that pasta. I'll be home after midnight." The word home sat in my chest like a stone. In the morning, I told myself the night had been nothing but polite neighborliness. I found my ring in the drawer and pressed it into my palm until the metal warmed like a promise. I had always liked promises. They sounded like bridges you couldn't see the end of, but you believed would hold. It was 2 weeks later when the hinge broke. Elise's phone lit with a message while she was in the shower. I wasn't looking for anything. The screen just woke, and there it was. "I miss your mouth." A name I knew. A coworker who wrote speeches about virtue and loved dogs. A man whose Irish vowels were a trick everyone let him keep. I stared at the words like they'd been addressed to the wrong house. There is a moment before anger when the brain tilts the scene like a snow globe, shakes, tries to resettle the flakes into a year you recognize. The shower turned off. I put the phone face down on the counter and brushed my teeth until the toothpaste burned. I didn't say anything. Not that day, not the next. Cowardice looks like patience if you don't squint. I practiced lines in my head and set them aside like dead flowers. On Saturday, Elise asked if I wanted to go to the flea market near the bridge. She tried on a coat with a missing button and spun. "What do you think?" she asked, and I said, "It's almost perfect." And that was the truest thing I'd said in a week. That night, I took the lighter back to Myra's. I told myself it was an errand, an adult thing. She opened the door wearing an oversized shirt that might once have belonged to the man who made the dent on the nightstand. Music was playing low, a song that sounded like a memory humming into a glass. "I don't smoke," I said, holding up the lighter like evidence. "But you made this sacred by placing it in a temple." She laughed, and then she looked at me long enough for the joke to go out. "What broke?" she asked. I didn't know whether to admire or resent her for cutting the wire cleanly. I told her about the message, about the way Elise had touched my elbow the same night and asked if I wanted ginger tea, how tenderness had never felt so counterfeit. I confessed the stupid, everyday cruelty of not confronting a thing because you want the illusion of before to last one more breakfast. I told her the word home had been echoing inside me like an empty room. She listened with her hand around her mug as if warming it and then said, "Sometimes people don't cheat because they want someone else. They cheat because they can't stand who they are where they are." The thought slipped under my ribs before I could stop it. "And sometimes," she added, "they cheat because they want both the promise and the fire." "And us," I said, regretting the question as it left. "What are we?" "Neighbors," she said, "and something else." The something else happened like a door we both leaned on with too much weight and were surprised to find it open. There was no soundtrack swell, just the plain, unbearable relief of being seen and not trying to be better, only true. I remember her collarbone like a line I didn't know I was tracing 1,000 times. I remember how we both kept saying wait without wanting to wait at all. We kissed in the middle of her half-made bed and then sat up again as if to remind ourselves we were still people who could stop. We didn't. Everything was held back enough to survive daylight. Skin on fabric, breath braided with breath, a small geography of hunger mapped with hands. "I'm not your revenge," she whispered. "I don't want revenge," I said, and believed it, though later I would admit to myself that part of me wanted to be wanted louder than I was hurt. The next morning I walked down the hall to 4A feeling like anyone could see my mouth was different. Elise was still sleeping, one arm over her eyes, the new coat on a chair like a person waiting to be chosen. I made coffee and stood at the window watching a man parallel park badly, the car inching forward and back with theater. It would be a long time before I understood that choosing one thing does not unchoose the others. At that time, it felt like I had stepped onto a second bridge without leaving the first. The days that followed were an alternating current. Dinners with Elise where we were good at being a photo of ourselves. Afternoons with Myra where time slowed into a forgiving syrup. Elise would tell me about a job opening in another city and test my face for disappointment. I would make a joke and pour more wine. Myra would read me a paragraph from a book with sentences that folded into each other and ask if I could feel the seam. I would nod and put my hand on her ankle like a secret handshake. I told myself I would end one thing before we drowned in both. Then Elise found the lighter. It had wandered back into our kitchen drawer, but Myra's candle wax fingerprint, how ridiculous that is to say, had left a thin white crescent on the metal. Elise held it up and asked, "Since when do you have a lighter?" The question was not explosive, not yet. It rode in on a breeze of suspicion, almost playful. I felt myself become an actor in a play I didn't audition for. "From the blackout," I said. "Myra needed it." "You two got close fast," she said. I heard the grin trying to reach her voice and fail. "She's good for you. You talk more." She tossed the lighter back into the drawer like a penny into a well. I wanted to say, "I'm in trouble." I wanted to say, "Ask me one more time and I'll tell you everything." Instead, I said, "You smell like jasmine," and we kissed like we remembered how. When the confrontation came, it wasn't about the lighter or the message. It was a Wednesday, and Elise came home early and sat on the edge of our bed and said, "I think I want the job in Chicago." She said it like a person testing a floorboard. "I thought you didn't want to leave," I said. "I thought we were." I didn't finish the sentence. The ring in the drawer felt like a small animal holding its breath. "I don't know what I want," she said. "I want this. I also want something that scares me. Do you ever feel like we built a beautiful house with the wrong address?" "Yes," I said before I could stop the honesty. "And I hate that I do." She reached for my hand and then pulled back like she remembered something she owed someone else. "I kissed Connor," she said. "Once. It was stupid. I felt nothing and everything. I'm sorry." The easiest thing would have been to explode. Instead, I felt a calm I didn't trust. "I know," I said. "How?" she asked. "Your phone," I said, and watched her close her eyes, a gesture of surrender and self-defense. She nodded slowly. "Do you want to punish me?" she asked, and the question was so naked I wanted to wrap it in something warm. "No," I said. "I think I just want to stop pretending the bridge is safe." "Are you seeing someone?" she asked. The words were sunlight finding the seam. I swallowed. I thought of Myra's ring dent, the candle we burned to keep the dark honest, the relief that tasted like a new version of my own name. "Yes," I said. "I don't know what to call it. I don't know what I am." She cried without tears, the quiet kind that rearranges your face. "Myra," she said, not asking. It wasn't a question. It was the sound a compass makes when it reluctantly points north. We did not throw plates. We did not scream. We made tea and sat at the table like colleagues negotiating a treaty in a country neither of us planned to visit again. She took off her earrings and lined them up like punctuation. We decided nothing that night because decisions felt like cliffs. I slept on the couch and dreamed of two doorways that led to the same room. In the morning, Elise left a note. "I'll stay at my sister for a few days. Take what you need. I love you. I don't know what that means right now." I walked to 4C and knocked. Myra opened the door and saw my face and didn't ask. I told her the truth with the kind of clarity you only get when the worst thing doesn't kill you. "There will be no revenge," I said. "There will be grief. There will be coffee. I don't know who I am in this next life yet, but I want to find out without lying." She stood back to let me in and said, "Then come in like a person who can leave." We didn't kiss right away. We sat by the window watching the city do what it always does, forget and begin. She told me about the dent from the ring, how she kept it not because she missed him but as a proof of gravity. Things leave marks even if they're gone. "I hate that," I said. "I love that," she said. Later, we lay close enough to hear the other's heart and far enough to know we could. We moved carefully, hands, breath, the kind of hunger that asks permission at every step and waits for yes. It wasn't a victory. It was a beginning that complained like an old hinge but still opened. We went as far as the lines of a story that can live online will allow. Skin warmed under a shirt, a kiss that wandered and came back, the kind of intimacy that makes the room feel like a secret promise between two witnesses. Days became a temporary tense. Elise packed quietly and left a sweater and a mug and the small rituals that make leaving hurt. We divided books like parents trying to be fair. We hugged in the doorway too long and not long enough. She whispered, "Be good to yourself," which sounded like a blessing and a warning. People ask if I regret it. The ring in the drawer asked first. It wanted a yes or a no it could live with. What I have is a story that doesn't settle cleanly. I learned that loving two people can mean you loved none of them well. I learned that home is not a room you own the deed to. It's the air that knows your name and doesn't flinch. I learned that telling the truth after waiting too long is still better than building a life on almost. Sometimes at night, the building is quiet enough to hear someone else's laugh travel down the hall and take a tour of your living room. I still have the lighter, now without wax, its metal warm from my pocket. When the dark shows up, I light a candle not for romance but for witness. The flame makes everything look temporary and holy. Myra keeps a small plant on her windowsill that leans toward the light, and then when the light moves, leans again. She turns it without thinking, a slow choreography of survival. We turn too. We do laundry, we cook, we argue about the best way to fold t-shirts, we kiss in the doorway with care, we leave our shoes in a heap and apologize to them later. There are nights we're reckless and mornings we're brave. There are days when I miss what we ruined, even as I'm grateful we stopped lying to it. If you need a clean ending, this isn't that. If you need a moral, it might be this. The heart wants what it wants, but if you listen long enough, it will also tell you the cost. And still, you will pay it and keep the receipt like a relic, and some nights you will hold that receipt up to the candlelight and read it again, and the total will flicker between too much and exactly enough. On Myra's nightstand, the dent is still there, a soft crater where a circle used to sleep. Sometimes she sets the lighter in it like a stand-in for a life neither of us is living anymore. I like to think it's not a placeholder but a reminder. If the dark comes back, and it will, there's a match somewhere, a small thing that makes room for seeing. We blow it out when we're done, and the room remembers how to be a room, and we remember how to be ourselves, and the city hums, forgiving, outside the glass.